First, let me wish all of you a very good afternoon. We know that the two of us are the final barrier for your lunch. But anyway, we'll try to keep it as brief and as interesting as possible. The first question comes to mind when I was asked to speak. Who is a leader? Very simple terms. If you have a follower, you're a leader. That's all there is to it. If you have 2 followers, you're a leader. And you can be a leader anywhere. We have religious leaders, we have corporate leaders, we have academic leaders, maybe some of you here. We of course have political leaders, and we have 2 budding political leaders right on the dais here with me. So I was sort of, I'm the only one who's not there, so Pandya was telling it's time for you to convert. So I'll take that into mind. In the past, the leader was more a manager of outcomes, and he dictated orders. And these instructions were taken by followers, and they would sort of ensure that they executed these orders. This came from a very military style of operation. Today, it is a world where the leader is more of a mentor and a coach, a manager of people, not outcomes. And the followers of this leader, they are empowered, and these subordinates handle the outcomes. There's a huge difference. And how did this difference come about? Organizations in the past were mostly focused inward. We looked at inward, we looked at efficiencies. We had departments like silos, and the departments were sacrosanct. We would not talk to each other. Whether it's an academic institution, whether it's a corporate world, even today we have many companies which are still dinosaurs, but we had these structures, rigid hierarchies, especially in India, large power distance. The boss is God, which today I'm very, very happy is getting broken down. And thanks to one little thing, 3 words, ICT. It's being broken down because of information and communication technology. Empowerment, which was knowledge, is now available at the touch of a button on the internet. And I'm sure most of you have been involved in this. So gone are the rigid hierarchies, gone is the wide power distance, and before, outcomes occupied the leader's mind. Today, it's a little different. Because of ICT, because of globalization, there is a shift to a less hierarchical organization. Gone are the days where leaders were superheroes. Today is the age for well-networked teams. Bala spoke about teams and teamwork. Without your team, you're a zero, not a hero. It's very, very important that you build empowered network teams. This shift was accelerated, of course, by the move from brick and mortar industries, as the knowledge industry people put. I come from a brick and mortar industry, an industrial era to a knowledge-based service era, driven by this digital, what you call progress that we have seen in the last 2 decades or so. So the pressure to have a new type of leadership is growing and is posing challenges not just to organizations, but to colleges, schools, and the country. And I just differ a little bit with Bala saying that leaders are born or not made. If you catch them young enough in school, in primary, elementary school, you can perhaps even make leaders, Bala. Unfortunately, we don't catch them. We try to make leaders out of adults. We are set in our ways. Very difficult to change them. So perhaps we should have a look at that. Today's business leaders, their minds are more focused on creating value for the customer. Even in India, the customer was never a king. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember those days when it took us 10 years to get a telephone line and 7 years to get a Bajaj scooter. Vespa it was called then. We had no choice. The best choice was an ambassador on a Fiat, and you bring it out and you rebuild it. Today you ask for a car or a 2-wheeler, there are 5 people at your doorstep giving you money, giving you the 2-wheeler. Today customer is the king, you have a choice. We have moved, the country has moved. And what we need today in terms of leadership is the need, the foremost need of a leader is to be an empathetic listener who walks the talk. Empathy is very, very important. And that is seen in today's young. If you're not empathetic to the young, they don't care for you. Leaders have to be seen as genuine and trustworthy. You know, nature has a quaint sense of humor. Human beings were given 2 ears and a mouth. The idea was to listen twice more than you speak. Unfortunately, human beings are great at defying nature. We speak more than we listen. And also you see the humor in nature. The mouth is, you eat, you speak, you do everything. The ears, you can't do anything except hear. There was a sign there, but are we taking those signs? No. We choose to ignore it. So this is something that we need to do. And even when we listen, what do? We are listening, we are hearing, not listening, to make up our reply so that it is smarter than the guy who spoke to us or gave us the question. The whole idea is completely warped. A good leader listens empathetically. No judgment, he's not judgmental. He understands what the other person is talking before he takes his call. While universal values and characteristics of leadership, they have not changed. You need passion, you need commitment, you need focus, you need discipline. Of course, you need charisma also. When you're in politics, I think you need a little bit of charisma, because long years ago when Kerry was trying to be the president in the US, and I was talking to my US friends in the US, one of them told me, Kerry has the charisma of a cabbage. He'll never get elected. So this was the situation. You need charisma too in leadership. All these remain still very, very valid. But what has changed is the way you approach people, the way you approach leadership. Because of the complexity, the highly dynamic environment, and the constantly changing expectations of the customer. This calls for very, very quick thinking, innovative leadership, and leaders who possess a thirst for knowledge, leaders who are adaptable, agile, flexible, and possess a very high level of EQ, not just IQ. The most important part of a human being as you sort of rise up the leadership ladder is your EQ. And if you don't have that, then you don't have the capacity to become good leaders of today. The leaders of the new age don't have to be experts or specialists in the area they are working. Not a great requirement. Don't have to have a PhD in what you're doing. They have to have the capacity to manage teams, manage them well, and also channel the right information to the right people at the time that this is required. If you have that capacity, you perhaps are a good leader. Today's leaders are visionaries. I'm not talking of vision and mission statements that corporates or colleges put out. They all sound the same to me, and they look the same to me. Real visionaries, where you mean what you say. Leaders should be able to inspire people. Many a time I give this example, especially to corporates. We pay our people, and Bala said we have to pay them more, we have to make more profits. Yes, we need to. But in spite of that, we get complaints that they are not satisfied. Just look at the NGOs, and look at what you yourself or some of us do with NGOs. They don't pay us a pie. We give them the best time. We give them the best brains. Why? Because of inspiration of doing something. I always ask corporate leaders, why can't you build your company like an NGO and you even get paid for that work? You're happy and you get paid. So this is something that we need to do. Leaders of the new age will change organizational structures. And to change organizational structures, to make leaders, you as academicians have a duty, which is really an onerous task, to ensure that you build the right foundation, because foundations are built when you're young. I think people tell me 7 or 11, I don't know what the age. Once you pass that age, you're set in your ways. So you have a responsibility. You have to set a clear purpose. In our company, I knocked off the mission and vision because it sort of sounded so archaic. I said, what is our purpose? Then I asked about purpose in life. They said, oh, I'm come from a pump company. We should make the best pumps for the best. I said, that's same as mission and vision. Can you not look at a purpose which is beyond business? A purpose which has a higher calling than just business. Business should be a byproduct of this. I need to be profitable to help somebody. If I don't make money, I cannot be philanthropic. If I don't have a food to eat, whom am I going to give food to eat? So we need profitability. We need to be sort of, focused on the outcomes. But we need a purpose which is larger than business. When you are looking as academicians as a purpose, many colleges and schools I go to, oh, we got so many percent, cent percent marks or so many percentage of pass. I said, all that is fine. What have they learned? All that you do is make them learn by rote, vomit it out in an exam. It comes out. I don't know how many of you are from engineering colleges or from this thing, and you ask any corporate here, we have to retrain them for at least 2 years if they are smart enough. Do we have an education system which teaches you how to live in life and in the corporate world and relate it to real life? That's what matters. What we have, I'm not saying everything is bad about it. We were left behind with a legacy. Some of it is good, but some of it needs a huge amount of change. Innate ability to handle change. He spoke about the constantly changing. Business cycles are no longer 5 years. They're sometimes even 5 months. In the IT industries, it's 3 months, I think, before something changes. Very, very difficult to keep track of it. So if you have leaders who are not able to change, who are rigid, who are sitting in their slots of comfort, there is no way that progress can happen. Again, it's up to you as teachers and academics to ensure that you build this kind of a pipeline of leaders who can take on and who are not fazed by changes. Look at the current day's organizations. There are many organizations which don't even have a table and chair for their people. They are virtual organizations. They are faceless people sitting across the world working together. The only tenuous connection they have is their broadband. Even that you can't see it physically, it's up in the air somewhere. But we get information, we give information. We work together. Do students that come out of your institutions have the ability to do this? Or do they want to sit in front of some face and talk and do work together? It's a huge change in mindset. It's very, very difficult to be on your own. People tend to be with other people, but organizations are changing. You sit in your home, you sit in your car, you work. So what is happening? These organizations are virtual organizations getting networked. Partnerships that are coming up are very temporary. I get along with you for an X job, and I go to your competitor for a Y job, and we keep moving. That's also happening in today's organizations. Do we have the wherewithal to have leadership which takes care of this? Then we have to deal with complex human factors. I'm always happy dealing with machines. I'm a mechanical engineer. It doesn't talk back to me. I can tell it what to do, and I can make the changes. I start talking with human beings, then I have to deal with a huge number of complexes there and find out what am I supposed to do. And especially if I talk to my wife, I have to be very careful. Under the same circumstances, it will be two different reactions, so I need to be very careful as to what am I going to say under these set of circumstances. So this is a human being. And the more and more that in the future we are going to deal with human reactions. The robots are taking care of production. Everything is getting automated. Even guys like us who are very happy in the brick and mortar world got disturbed completely by guys like you. We started putting intelligence into pumps, into cars and everything now. In those days when I was young, I could repair a car. Now I don't know what it is. Everything is in terms of millivolts and milliamps. So the world has changed. So the future professional may not be your employee at all. I'm looking at a day when each one of us is an expertise and we work for 10 companies. We have the mental makeup not to disclose one company's work to another, but yet be hired by 10 companies. I sit at my house, I'm my boss, and I'll give the output. So part-time, it's based on specific jobs and expertise. Boundaries between work, play, leisure, formal paid work, informal work, getting completely blurred. Shifting very, very rapidly. Do we have leaders who can sort of handle this in our own organizations? Is the academicians preparing, as our schools and colleges, preparing people for this? No. We still have some syllabi which came when the British left. Some, of course, have changed. And we continue to drive people, drive our kids. When I see parents in elementary schools, I don't know, they are more ambitious than their children. They want more out of the children and they're really pushing them to an edge. Of course, Bala said we should test, at what level is their resistance and to what extent they can go. But that is when you're an adult, when you're working in an organization. But we have started doing with our children. Children are supposed to have fun. You remember your own childhood, you had fun. But today it's not that way. So the future leader is a people manager and a facilitator, and not the person where the final decision lies. So that's very, very important. The leader is not the final decision maker. He just facilitates the teams to take the call. So this is something that one has to remember. Even within organizations, there are parts of organizations which are built differently. They have their own outlook, maturity levels. You have operational modes that are different, leaders that are, requirement of leaders that are different. Some may have to be entrepreneurial, some may have to be structured. The only thing that I see as common is value systems and ethical standards, which of course in today's India we have to debate where we are going, but hopefully we will turn that around in the right direction. So the education system to cater to this new organization has to undergo a sea change, a complete change. The focus will be on applied knowledge rather than book knowledge, as we spoke of. Expertise in a narrow field is just not enough. It's important, but you have to have a holistic view of the processes that you're dealing with. Very often, all of us think what we do is the most important thing in an organization. But please understand, if the sweeper doesn't sweep or somebody doesn't clean your toilet, your organization stops working. Every person from the top to bottom is a very important spoke in this wheel called organization, whether it's a college, whether it's the government, or whether it's private industry or corporates. It's very, very important that we realize that today we need to sort of deal with human beings, give them more respect. It's not something that you just sort of order out like a military and it'll get done. Learning will be more experiential. Interactive media. I mean, anything that I want today, right, wrong, I just have to hit a button. There are videos on it. There is sort of all kinds of data on it, and I can perhaps speak as good as an expert without knowing the subject. It's available, provided you look for it. So education is going to come out of classrooms. Classrooms, as we see today, I think will become a dinosaur. Classrooms will be at your workplace. Classrooms will be there where you're actually sort of experiencing this learning, and you'll perhaps have some amount of theory going along with what is practical. Today's education also does not inculcate a very strong sense of values and ethics. It was in the past in India. So education is more focused on the science and not the art of doing things. Everything has a science and art. Everything has a head and a heart. We have a head and a heart. So what we need to do is balance both. Not much is taught in how to deal with human beings in socio-cultural aspects. We give them science, it is very important, but we also need to give them the ability to deal with things. You see the number of suicides that take place in IT companies. For what? Because we haven't found the way of dealing with human beings. We are playing around with human beings' feelings and the way they sort of think about what they are, with their self-esteem, etc. We need to handle this, and I'm sure most of the IT heads, leaders who by virtue of money or muscle power become leaders. We have very few transformational leaders. Leaders who have the interest of the nation, leaders who have the collective interest and have the ability to develop whether the nation or the state or the corporate that you're working in or the institution, and plan and prepare its people for a better future. In academics too, the situation seems to be the same. It is today not normally the preferred first choice. I have often said this to academics that what was a passion in those days is now just a profession. And that too not the first choice. The need for innovation is there. Education has to keep pace with the ever-changing needs of the current age. You just pick any syllabus that we have of an ITI, it's so archaic. We have not made changes. We're not keeping in touch with the changes. Teachers and administrators have to inculcate the habit of continuous learning. You got to learn every day. You got to revive your own skills. And this is vital to ensure that you're able to bring out people who are inspired and who are useful. You have to mix learning with doing. Theory with real life practice is a must. And it's very easy. It also makes it easy for kids to sort of understand if you relate it to some real life practice. Cross-functional approach, very, very necessary to enable students for the future. Team approach, I said, result orientation important, and ability, agility to change. I'm just sort of recapping what I've said, because the changing conditions today means that you have to be very, very quick. In an uncertain world, the only certainty is change. We need to be prepared. Finally, just to recap, the leadership principles that we follow in our company, we said, okay, let's put down leadership principles. First, as a leader, we must be present. You cannot be an absentee leader. You got to be there for your people. We have to inspire passion, curiosity, and joy. You don't want an unhappy workforce. You can have passion, curiosity, but if everybody is unhappy, then you're not a good leader. You have to inspire joy. You have to empower people. You have to build high-performance teams. And very, very vital, you have to invent the tomorrow, not wait for it to come. Unless until you're innovative and you're inventing tomorrow, you will not go too far. And one of the greatest things that we need to do, and the most urgent things that we need to do in this country, is change the way we are educating our children. Change the way we are imparting knowledge. Get more interaction between industry and the institutions. With this, I think I'll stop. Thank you very much.